I am 69 years old, and a few months ago I sat alone in a hospital room, holding the hand of my husband Carlton during his final days. We had been married for 47 years. That room 306 was quiet, sterile and still. The only sound was the slow, mechanical rhythm of the heart monitor, which felt like it was ticking down the final moments of my life as well. Down the hallway in room 304 I heard laughter, children's voices, the scrape of chairs, the crinkle of flower wrappers. That room was full, overflowing with family, with warmth, with life. I counted at least 10 visitors the day before. Their grandfather had opened his eyes again, and it became a celebration. But our room, no one came. Carlton and I had 2 children, a son and a daughter. We'd raised them with love, discipline and sacrifice. We went without so they could have more. Birthdays, soccer games, school concerts, we were there for everything. But when Carlton collapsed from a stroke and was rushed to the ER, our phone calls went unanswered, or worse, politely declined. I stayed by his side for 7 days straight, never leaving except for coffee and the occasional stretch in the hallway. The nurses offered me a cot, but I refused. I couldn't bear the idea of missing even a moment in case he opened his eyes. On day 7, Dr. Whitaker came in mid-40s, kind, composed, with tired eyes. "Miss Monroe," he said gently, "I'm afraid there's been no improvement. I wish I had better news." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Thank you, doctor." He hesitated. "Is there anyone I can call for you? You shouldn't have to go through this alone." I gave the same lie I'd repeated for days. "They're coming. They live far away." He nodded, but we both knew the truth. The visitor log was blank. The windowsill held no cards, no flowers, just a woman clinging to the final hours of the man she loved. I turned back to Carlton. His hands were thinner now, almost translucent, but I could still see the strength in them. These were the hands that built our first home, that held our babies, that held me through every heartbreak and joy. "I'm here, love," I whispered. "I'm still here." And I would be, until the very last moment. The morning after Carlton's stroke, I made 2 phone calls I never imagined I'd have to make. The first was to our son, Adam. He lives in Seattle with his wife, Natalie, and their 2 teenage boys. He works in tech, something high-level and demanding, though I never quite understood his job title. Carlton was always so proud of him, said he'd gone further than either of us ever dreamed. When he picked up, his voice was clipped and rushed. "Hey Mom, can we make this quick? I'm just heading into a meeting." I forced myself to stay calm. "Adam, your father's in the hospital. He had a stroke yesterday. The doctors aren't sure if he'll wake up." There was a pause, long and uncomfortable. Then, "How bad is it?" "It's bad," I said. "They've got him on life support. I think you should come." Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, I'm in the middle of a huge project right now. It's a critical window. Can you keep me updated? If things get really serious, call me back." I wanted to scream that this was already as serious as it gets, but I swallowed it. "All right," I whispered. "I'll keep you updated." The second call was to our daughter, Madeline, who lives in Scottsdale with her husband, Trevor, and their 3 young kids. She runs a boutique downtown and always seems to be on the move. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey Mom, everything okay?" I repeated the same news: stroke, hospital, life support. Madeline sighed. "Oh no, poor Dad. But Mom, you know I can't just drop everything. Do you have any idea how much a last-minute flight costs these days? And Trevor's got a huge open house coming up." I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like a stranger in my own life. "I just thought, maybe you could be here," I said. "Dad's strong," she replied. "He'll pull through. Let me know how things go, okay?" That was 5 days ago. Neither of them called back, not even once. I looked at the empty chair beside Carlton's bed, the one that should have held our son, or our daughter, but it held no one. In room 304, someone was singing happy birthday. In room 306, I sat in silence and wondered how love could become so distant, so forgettable. Before all of this, before the stroke, before the silence, Carlton was the strongest man I knew. He started as a laborer at a construction company called Holloway Sons when he was just 24. Over the years, he climbed the ranks and became a respected site supervisor. He didn't wear suits or sit in boardrooms, but he built homes, real homes. He used to say, "My work keeps the rain off someone's baby." For 23 years, that's exactly what he did. Brick by brick, beam by beam. Then came the crash, the housing crisis that swallowed so many lives. Carlton was laid off 2 weeks after his 60th birthday. Half the crew gone overnight, just like that. I still remember the day he came home early. He stood in the kitchen, hands trembling, holding a cardboard box with his hard hat and lunch container inside. "They said they're sorry," he mumbled, said they had no choice. We sat at the table in silence for a long time. Neither of us knew what to say. After 40 years of working nonstop, my husband suddenly had nowhere to go. At first he stayed hopeful. He printed resumes, ironed his shirts, left the house every morning like it was a job in itself. "Construction always bounces back," he said. But months passed, then a year, no callbacks, no interviews. He was competing with men half his age, and his back couldn't take the labor anymore. That's when the distance began. Adam, always ambitious, didn't know how to relate to a father who wasn't a provider anymore. He had built his identity on success, and Carlton, unemployed and aging, no longer fit into that narrative. I remember that Thanksgiving. Adam and Natalie had driven down with the boys. Carlton was over the moon, even though he hadn't worked in 8 months. Over dinner, Adam asked, "So, Dad, any luck on the job front?" Carlton straightened up. "Got an interview next week with a landscaping company." Adam chuckled softly. "Landscaping? Isn't that a step backward?" Carlton looked down at his plate. "Work is work." Adam shook his head. "I just don't understand how you let this happen. Didn't you see it coming? Didn't you plan?" The table fell silent. Even the kids stopped eating. Later that night, I found Carlton in the garage, sitting at his old workbench, staring at his hands. "I embarrassed him," he said. "No," I replied. "He embarrassed himself." But deep down, we both knew something had shifted, and it might never shift back. Carlton eventually found work again, about 10 months after he was laid off. It wasn't glamorous. He got a job as a maintenance technician for the local school district. The pay was half of what he used to earn, and the benefits were minimal, but he took it without hesitation. "It's honest work," he said, "and it'll help us stay afloat." And it did, barely. He started waking up earlier, coming home later, and taking side jobs on the weekends just to make ends meet. He was in his 60s, working harder than most men half his age, but he never complained. At least not to me. What he didn't say out loud, I could see in the way he moved slower, winced more, and smiled less. Then one day, Madeline called. She sounded frantic. Their 3rd child had just been born. Trevor's real estate business had hit a rough patch. They were behind on the mortgage, and medical bills were piling up. She needed $5,000. Carlton didn't even flinch. He nodded once, went to the bedroom, and pulled out the paperwork to cash out a portion of his already small retirement fund. That money was supposed to keep us going in our later years. Instead, we ate canned soup and rice for months while Madeline posted pictures from a spa weekend 2 months later. There was no thank you, no acknowledgement, just hashtags about self-care and deserved rest. Carlton saw the pictures. He never said a word, just turned off the computer, went outside, and sat on the porch alone for an hour. It wasn't just Madeline. When Adam's oldest got accepted into a private middle school, Carlton sent a generous anonymous scholarship to help with tuition. He pawned his favorite drill set to do it. He never told me. I found out only much later. At first I thought our kids were just busy. That life had simply pulled them away. But over time, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Calls came less often, visits were rare. Carlton's birthdays were marked by silence, unless I reminded them. Holidays became smaller, quieter. Eventually it was just the 2 of us setting the table for 6. Carlton never complained. But he started keeping more things to himself. I'd catch him staring out the window longer, smiling less, carrying a weight he never let me see. But now, in hindsight, I understand. He was protecting me. From their absence. From the pain. From the slow erosion of a family we once believed would never drift apart. And he carried that burden quietly so I wouldn't have to. Carlton passed away on a quiet Tuesday morning, just as the sun was rising behind the hospital parking lot. I had dozed off in the chair beside his bed, my fingers still curled around his. The change in the beeping of the monitor woke me. It slowed, then stopped. Dr. Whitaker arrived quickly, along with 2 nurses I had come to know by name. They moved with practiced grace, adjusting wires and checking vitals, but I could see in their eyes they already knew. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Monroe," the doctor said gently. I nodded. I couldn't find words. I had known this moment was coming, but the finality still hit like a blow to the chest. After the necessary paperwork and quiet goodbyes, I began gathering my things. As I folded Carlton's sweater into my bag, Dr. Witter returned with a manila envelope in his hands. "Your husband gave this to me 3 days ago," he said softly. "He asked me to give it to you only after everything." I took the envelope with shaking hands. It was heavier than expected. Inside, I felt something metallic, maybe a key and folded papers. "He was very clear about the timing," the doctor added. "He said you should read it alone." I thanked him, though the words barely left my mouth. Outside, the sun was too bright. The world too alive for a day like this. I sat in my car, holding the envelope against my chest like a lifeline. Finally, I opened it. Inside was a small brass key and a letter written in Carlton's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Everly, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted to leave you alone, but I knew this day would come. I need you to go home and check the back of our bedroom closet. Behind my old boots you'll find a small safe. The key in this envelope opens it. The password is the day we met, October 14, 1974. You were wearing that blue dress and laughing at my terrible joke about the rain. I knew then and there you were it for me. What's inside isn't just money or things, it's what I've been holding on to for years. But before you open it, know this: loving you was the greatest privilege of my life. You were always enough. You were everything. Forever yours, Carlton." I sat there crying in the front seat, reading his words over and over, as if doing so could somehow bring him back. I had no idea what waited for me in that safe, but I knew whatever it was, it came from love. When I got home, the house felt impossibly quiet. 47 years of shared life echoed in every room: his slippers by the door, the mug with a chip he refused to throw away, the faint scent of cedar from his flannel shirts. I walked into our bedroom, still holding the brass key, and opened the closet. Just like Carlton had said, behind his scuffed old work boots, there was a small black fireproof safe I had never seen before. I knelt down, hands trembling, and typed the code. 101,474. A soft click, the door opened. Inside, there were several neat stacks of cash, some old jewelry I thought we'd lost, including my grandmother's pearls, and on top of it all, a leather-bound journal with my name on the cover. Written in Carlton's careful print beneath it, what they never knew. I sat on our bed, clutching the journal like it might crumble in my hands, and opened to the first page. January 5, 2013. Adam's birthday. Everly made his favorite cake. We waited by the phone all day. He didn't call. She smiled through it, but I found her in the kitchen wiping tears away while the frosting cooled. I should have said something. I should have held her. I flipped ahead. July 19, 2014. Madeline called today asking for help with back-to-school expenses. Said Trevor's business was tight. I saw on Facebook last week they bought a new patio set. I cashed in one of the CDs to send her the money. Told Everly it was a good investment, maturing early. Page after page, Carlton had recorded every moment of heartbreak. Every time our kids didn't call, didn't visit, didn't care. But it wasn't bitterness that filled those pages, it was love. A painful, sacrificial kind of love that tried to protect me from seeing how far our children had drifted. November 28, 2015. Thanksgiving. Adam didn't come again. 3rd year in a row. Everly still set his place at the table. I told her maybe next year. I called Adam after dinner, he didn't pick up. I left a message about how good the stuffing turned out. May 8, 2016. Mother's Day. Everly planted roses. I saw her check the mailbox 3 times for a card. I ordered flowers and signed the note, "Love, Madeline and the kids." She smiled when they arrived. Said, "At least they remembered." I couldn't bear to tell her otherwise. Every entry was dated, specific, heartbreakingly honest. Carlton hadn't just been a husband, he'd been a quiet guardian shielding me from the full weight of our children's indifference. Creating illusions of care, sending birthday cards, holiday gifts, flowers, all in their names, all from him. He had spent years holding back this truth, not to deceive me but to protect my heart. The further I read, the more I cried. But it wasn't just sadness I felt. It was awe. A man who loved so deeply that he chose to carry the pain alone so that I didn't have to. That's the kind of love most people never get to see. And I had lived inside it for nearly half a century. Carlton's funeral was held on a rainy Thursday morning at St. Agnes Chapel, the same place we had said our vows 47 years earlier. 19 people came, neighbors, former co-workers from the school district. Mrs. Albright from next door brought banana bread. The Ramos family helped with flower arrangements. They were the people who had become our real family quietly, steadily when our own children had vanished from our lives. Adam and Madeline arrived 15 minutes before the service began. They looked like they had stepped out of a catalog. Adam wore a tailored black suit and polished shoes. Madeline had on a designer coat I recognized from one of her Instagram posts. Christmas gift from Trevor, she had captioned. They sat beside me in the front pew, stiff and silent. Adam checked his phone twice. Madeline dabbed her eyes, but no tears came. After the service, we gathered in the church hall for a simple reception. People shared stories how Carlton fixed their porches, without charging a dime, helped tutor a neighbor's son in math, shoveled snow for a widow on our street. Adam and Madeline stayed in the corner, speaking in low voices. I overheard bits of conversation. The house, she can't manage it alone. Probate will take forever unless we get started now. As the last guest trickled out, they approached me together. Mom, Adam began, his tone businesslike. We wanted to talk about the estate, the house, the finances, all of it. Madeline gave a tight smile. We know this is a difficult time, but you shouldn't be living here alone. It's too much. We were thinking maybe we could help sell the house and find you a place more appropriate. Like a senior community, Adam added, with activities and support, you'd be around people your age. I looked at them, these two strangers wearing my children's faces. And you think now is the right time for this conversation? I asked quietly. We're just trying to help, Madeline said. You don't have to do it alone. I reached into my purse and pulled out Carlton's journal. Do you know what this is? I asked. They both stared at it, confused. This is the truth, I said. Page by page, your father wrote down every sacrifice he made for you. Every dollar he sent anonymously. Every time you didn't call. Every lie he told to protect me from knowing how far you had drifted. I opened to a random page and began to read aloud. May 14, 2017. Adam's son was accepted to private school. Tuition steep. I sold my grandfather's watch to help. Signed the check as a scholarship donor. Everly doesn't know. She thinks it was a gift from the school board. Adam paled. Madeline blinked rapidly, suddenly struggling to breathe evenly. You say I shouldn't live here alone? I said. But I've been alone for years. And in that moment, the silence spoke louder than anything they could say. 6 months after the funeral, I stood in the international terminal at LAX, with a boarding pass in one hand and Carlton's journal in the other. My destination, Ireland. It had always been his dream to visit the land his great-grandfather left behind in 1921. He'd researched our genealogy for years, tracing his roots to a small village in County Kerry. We used to talk about going together someday, but someday had a habit of slipping away. Now it was just me, and a promise I intended to keep. The flight was the first time I had left the country in over 30 years, and the first time I'd traveled alone in my life. I was nervous, but also free. 3 days later, I stood in the village of Dunmore, in front of a weathered gravestone that read, Patrick Munro, 1842, 1906. Farmer, father, dreamer. I had brought a small pouch of soil from our garden soil Carlton had turned with his own hands. I sprinkled it over the grave and whispered, he made good on your dream. He built a life you would have been proud of. Later that day, I met Father Keane, the local priest. He showed me parish records, old maps, and even a crumbling photograph of a young man with Carlton's chin and eyes. Your husband came from good stock, the priest said, hardworking, loyal, quiet in their kindness. Those words followed me as I explored the countryside, rolling hills, stone fences, cottages with bright doors and burning peat fires. I thought about Carlton constantly, but it wasn't painful. It felt like he was finally free to be with me, not bound by duty, not weighed down by sacrifice. Just present. One morning in Galway, I met a woman named Nora who ran a cozy bed and breakfast. Over tea, she asked about my family. I told her the truth, no dramatics, no bitterness. My husband passed last year, she said softly, and sometimes I think that's when my life began again. We smiled at each other in silence. Before leaving, I bought a small stone from a shop. It was engraved with an old Irish blessing. May you always walk in sunshine, and may you never want for more. That stone sits in Carlton's garden now, next to the roses he planted and the bench where he used to drink his morning coffee. Ireland gave me something I never expected: permission to start again. Not as someone's wife or mother or widow, but as a woman who still had stories left to live. 3 weeks after I returned from Ireland, a silver SUV pulled into my driveway. It was Madeleine. She stepped out, overdressed in a silk blouse and heels, as if unsure whether she was attending a family visit or a board meeting. I was in the garden, pruning the hydrangeas Carlton had loved. She stood there awkwardly, clutching her purse like a shield. "Hi, Mom," she said. "I hope it's okay I came by." I didn't answer right away, just kept trimming a blossom that had browned in the sun. "It's your choice, Madeleine," I said finally. She walked slowly toward me, stopping just short of the garden gate. "The flowers look beautiful. Dad would be proud." I set down my clippers. "Your father was proud of many things," I replied. "Most of them you never bothered to notice." She flinched but didn't retreat. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, voice unsteady, "about what you said at the funeral, about the money, about everything Dad did." She opened her purse and pulled out a small folder. "Trevor and I calculated everything: the scholarships, the gifts, the help. We want to pay it back. All of it. Every cent." I looked at her, this grown woman who had once been my little girl, who used to climb into Carlton's lap and call him her hero. "Why now?" I asked. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said quickly. "Because we should have been there for him. For you." I shook my head. Returning his money won't return his presence. It won't undo the birthdays missed or the phone calls ignored. It won't fill the chair in the hospital room where you should have been. Madeleine's eyes welled with tears, real ones this time, not performance, not guilt, just grief. "Then tell me what I can do," she said. "How do I make it right?" "You can't," I said softly. "Some things can't be fixed, only learned from." She nodded slowly, her hands tightening around the folder. "But if you truly want to honor your father," I continued, "then don't do it for me. And don't do it to clear your conscience. Be a better mother to your children than you were a daughter to him." I turned back to my garden. She stood there for a while, then quietly walked to her car and drove away. I didn't follow her. I didn't invite her in. Forgiveness is a process, but so is self-respect. And I was just starting to remember what mine looked like. That night, I sat on Carlton's side of the bed, holding his journal in my lap. I opened to the final page. January 10th, 2023. If something happens to me, I hope Everly knows that every decision I made, every sacrifice was never about obligation. It was always about love. She was more than enough. She was everything. I closed the journal and pressed it to my chest. Carlton had given up so much. His money, his health, his pride, all to shield me from a truth he believed would break my heart. But he was wrong about one thing. It didn't break me. It woke me up. His love was never weak. It wasn't about avoidance or enabling. It was about protecting me while he could. And now it was my turn to protect his memory. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but by living. I booked a trip to Scotland the next morning. Carlton always wanted to see the Highlands. And this time I wouldn't go alone. Because I carry him with me quietly, faithfully in every step I take. If this story has found its way to you, tell me. What would you have done in my place? Leave a comment, share this story. And never forget, real love leaves a legacy.